All right, welcome back to the program. In case you're just joining us, I told you earlier that I'll be looking at human capital development in the country. My guest is here, Sola Bickersteth. He is the project coordinator, NIMC, NIMC, we call it NIMC now. There's so many abbreviations. Ecosystem Project is the President of Society for Agent Banking in Nigeria. He's also a financial inclusion specialist. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you.
How are you doing today?
Well, good. All things being equal, COVID allowing.
Okay, let's get started. We're looking at human capital development in Nigeria. Earlier on, when I was doing my introduction, I did say that economists have gone beyond looking at GDP numbers in terms of, the overall output of what a nation churns out every year, to perhaps looking at the HDI, Human Development Index. So economists have really defined human capital as the economic value of the qualities of labor, as well as that influence productivity. So you're talking about skills, you're talking about training, you're talking about knowledge, you're talking about personality traits and all of that. Why do you think that human capital is so important? Why do you think human capital is so important?
For productivity, you produce so that you can earn more or less. So if you don't have the capacity to produce, you're definitely not going to get results. So for an economy to be buoyant, for an economy to be growing, you need as many people in that economy to be producing. And they have to have the capacity to produce. More or less. So it's like one of the foundational pillars for a growing economy.
So that buttresses the fact that GDP is not enough, because GDP could be defined as 1 plus 1 is equal, or 1 plus 0 is equals to 1.
Yes.
0 plus 1 is also equals to 1. What I mean is that, for example, that GDP is about what you produce, what I produce,
yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
But if you're not producing anything and I'm producing, it also gives me the GDP numbers. That's 1 plus 0 is equals to 1.
Exactly.
So what human capital is about, from your own definition, is the development of skills,
yes.
of yourself, of myself, that would ensure productivity in the economy.
Absolutely. You just want as many people in the economy to be producing. It's as simple as that.
So if, for example, the rest of Nigeria is not producing and only Dangote is producing, and it produces so much, and our GDP reflects that. I really want us to give that distinction,
yes.
Between the GDP and human capital development.
Oh, yes. The human capital development, really, there's a linkage between the two. Let's not forget that at all. All right. But when you focus on the human capital development part of it, it's purely just productivity, and it's as simple as that. And the productivity is not just limited to the normal figures that we look at, manufacturing and all those kind of numbers. We should also look at the local productivity layers. The market women, what is their productivity? The laborers, what is their productivity? Sometimes when we run those figures, we focus on the structured economy and not on the informal economy. Unfortunately, Nigeria has a large percentage of informal economy, so which is why the numbers sometimes don't reflect what is happening on the streets, more or less, if you like.
Why do you think Nigeria is not utilizing all of its human capital potentials? Or do we even have enough human? I think before we go to utilization, do we
yes.
have enough human capital? It's not about population. It's not about 206 million people. But how much of human capital do we have with that population?
I'm trying to place it very properly. Because sometimes when we do analysis, like I've said, we run away from what is actually happening on the streets. And I'd like us to pay a little more attention to that. And I think that is what is wrong fundamentally with Nigeria. All right. When we do our analysis, we analyze not based on reality on ground. So what I mean, for example, is Nigeria is perceived to be a structured economy, but we're not. 70% of the economy is informal. And the numbers that happen in that informal sector is simply not being captured. So it's like what you said, +1 -0. So you're capturing only 30% of what is going on in the economy, and you're leaving out 70% unattended to. And that is where we need to pay attention to. We need to pay more attention to the informal sector, and then formalize them, if you like, so that the numbers can start making sense.
So let me go back to my question. Why do you think we are not utilizing all of our human capital? What are the challenges to our human capital development?
Is mismatch. Is mismatch of the skills required and the skills that are being churned out in the markets. If you take the typical trend of what happens when someone graduates from university, and you particularly have to retrain them so that they can acquire the kind of skills that are needed in the markets. So that mismatch is quite extensive, and it's clearly it's not allowing productivity in the economy.
So in essence, we are not creating market-ready graduates.
Absolutely.
So where does it leave education and health? Because when you're talking about human capital, you're looking at education, you're looking at training, you're looking at health. Where does it leave those sectors? Especially, I was taking a look at the 2021 budget, and I saw that the health ministry for the federal government, the health sector, or the health ministry would receive 131 billion, not putting into cognizance Gavi and some other donations that will bring it to about 201 billion naira. For the education for the education sector, the Federal Ministry of Education will get, I think, about 127 billion naira. So if you take a look at those indicators, they are still far below what we should be doing as a country vis-a-vis the population that we have, vis-a-vis the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
Should force us, or should force our hand to do some things better.
Oh, well, you see, I'm an ardent advocate for getting real. It's terribly important. So we've spoken about education, and the budgets that we have can be redefined in terms of focusing on short-term skills that can drive short-term economic activities. Of course, the numbers will never be enough. The size of budget that we have is 1/10 of what it should be in the first instance. But that's an entire conversation altogether about what government should be doing to match the requirements for human capital development in the country.
So what do you think we should be doing? Not just even on a federal scale, but also on a state scale.
Yeah, I've said it already. The focus is wrong. And that is what the state governments, the federal government needs to realign.
I want you to put it into fragments.
Yes.
And not just like a bogus stuff, because everyone will know, okay, we should spend more in education, we should spend more in health. For federal government, for example, we have tertiary institutions. The states governments are saddled with the primary health care as well as even education, primary schools and all of that. So I want you to put it into fragments in terms of what you think that government across sectors should do. And also the private sector, if private sector has anything to do in the development of human capital.
That's what I said. So the focus is on, for example, university education, polytechnic education. If I want to become a painter, for example, I don't need to go and spend 5 years in a university. I probably need to go to a studio where they teach people how to paint, and I spend about a week there. And I gather the skills, and from there, I start, trying my hands on it. So what I'm saying is that we should focus less on things like university education, tertiary education, and focus more on hands-on skills that majority of the population needs for them to be productive. Most of them don't require going to university, going to polytechnics, and all of that.
Why did you say we should focus less on tertiary education in terms of going through the four walls of a tertiary institution or of a polytechnic or of a university? Why? Are we trying to demonize that we don't need that? Because I know, for example, in China would say, okay, these are the number of engineers we need this year. How many can we produce? These are the number of doctors we need this year. How many can we produce? I've not seen a Nigerian government come up with that in terms of, okay, how many doctors do we have? How many do we need to have? How many doctors are, or how many student doctors are in various tertiary institutions that are schooling now that we project within the next 2, 3, 4 years? These are the number of doctors we have. Even though we are having an exodus of doctors going out of the country, we should be able to fill in this gap. These are the engineers we have right now. What projects, I hope I'm making
Yes,
sense.
so let me take
You understand what I'm saying? Because it's about also human capital in terms of what do you have? Fill up what you need to fill up. What don't you have? Try as much as possible to put what you don't have into, to make it right.
Yes, let's keep in mind that we're a country of 200 million people, right? And let's take engineering as an example. When you're doing a construction work, a road construction work, for example, that employs about 1,000 people, you need 5 engineers. It is those 5 engineers that need to go to university. But you need 1,000 skilled laborers who are going to, do the detailed work. So in terms of percentage of population, the majority of the people that you need to employ for a road construction work, for example, don't need a university education. And that is what I am saying.
What kind of education do they need?
Yeah, they need skills training. If I want to learn how to bend iron that will be put on a road, I don't need to go to university for that. I need to be well paid because I do it very well. And I'm going to need 1,000 people who are going to work under the supervision of one engineer. So one engineer goes to school, 1,000 people are trained on the basic skills. Those are skills that can be acquired with little investment, in limited time also. The important thing is to focus on the certification, ensure that they acquire the right skills for productivity. So if everybody goes, you can't put 1,000 engineers on a road construction work. It doesn't work that way. That's what I'm saying. The focus is wrong. And so we need to encourage skills acquisition, not at the university level, at the basic level. And that applies to
Aren't we
everywhere.
getting it twisted? Aren't we also getting it wrong? In terms of why shouldn't we also focus skills acquisition at the university or tertiary level? I don't want us to demonize the university. Can we make our universities or tertiary institutions work that they can actually deliver those skills to graduates? Because you see even a graduate that comes out now, tell the graduate to just put pen to paper, to just write even just a small letter. You see the problem falling. Even though the person is like a first-class graduate, I've seen a lot of them, and I begin to question, did you really graduate with this your certificate? So what I'm saying in essence is that can we retool or rejig our educational system that they can imbibe those market skills, training, that can get us market-ready graduates in all sectors? Because you see that even abroad. So it's just about, okay, let them do skills acquisition. Who gives you 1 week? Is it really about that?
So once again, you said the right word, which is refocusing, right? Don't get me wrong. The suggestion is not that university education is not necessary. It is a requirement. It is a requirement. But we have to be real. I've given an example. If you have a hospital, in a hospital you will have maybe 100 people that are working there. You're going to have maybe 10 doctors. There's 90 other people that make that hospital run. All right, so from a population perspective, it is only those 10 doctors that need to go to university. So what I'm saying is that when we emphasize so much on building more universities, we're focusing on the wrong layer of human capacity. We need to keep in mind that majority of our population, the 90 other people that are not medical doctors, but are still required to make that hospital run. The 1,000 other people that are not engineers, but they still need to make that road work. All right, they are the majority. So that is where our primary focus should be. It doesn't mean we should stop focusing on universities or tertiary. It's a fundamental. Without the people that have that specialist skills, the other people really can't function, but they fall into the majority. So I am saying that if we need more people to be productive, we should pay more attention to the lower level skills, even especially now that the cities have to be depopulated because of COVID. Anyway, a lot of Nigerians go to America, for example. I've seen people with PhD that drive taxis. When they're in America, they don't see what's wrong in it, but they're productive to the economy. That is what matters, right?
Yeah, they are riding taxes because perhaps they've not gotten the jobs they need, or perhaps that when they get there, the system of America does not allow them to integrate immediately.
God bless you.
They have to recertify themselves.
That's the point. You got it. So certification is different from certificate.
What's the difference?
Certification means that you are able to acquire the skills that are needed for the job. The certificate means that you have acquired knowledge. All right, you have read about it. There are two different things. One is practical, the other one is theoretical in nature.
What role do you think the private sector can play in terms of raising human development, human capital development in Nigeria? Or do you even think that the private sector has been playing a role, and to what extent has private sector even played a role? And how much more can they do?
As of today, it is actually the private sector that is bringing productivity to the economy. Remember what I said, that when a graduate leaves university, they have to be retrained. That is what the private sector presently does. They practically take graduates that they assume you don't know anything, and they practically just now train you properly for the skills that you need to do. So clearly, it's a burden, if you like, on the private sector. They shouldn't have to retrain people for the real skills that they needed. But it's a burden that we all have to carry. And of course, they need to step up even more in doing that. And ensure that we have more people that are productive in the economy. Productivity should not be seen as something that is purely complex. It can be seen as something that is as simple as, today we have graduates who are security guards, for example. Why did they go to university? They could have done a 2-week training and become
They are security guards perhaps because they
specialists.
didn't find jobs.
Yes.
They didn't find jobs, and they are doing that security guard as a stopgap measure, at least to have something in their pocket or food on their table.
So
not that they will want to do that.
So we're back to what I said. Now, the emphasis is in the wrong direction.
Okay, I understand you totally. I'm just saying that I don't want us to get it twisted in a way that perhaps the economy is so dysfunctional at this time that people that are supposedly should use their skills or what they have gathered are doing something lesser, so to speak. Not maximizing those skills. Why? Because the economy is not working for them. Because they do not have jobs. How would you say, for example, a chemical engineer or an electronics engineer, or let me say a mechanical engineer doing a security guard job and earning 20,000 naira a month? Are you now saying that that person should not go to school to study that engineering, but go and study or go to a private security arm or firm and just do a training for like 2-3 weeks or 1 month and go do security guard?
That's what happens outside. The American example, that's what happens there. You go to a certification and then you become a specialist and you get paid, well paid, for being a specialist. Nothing to do with your tertiary education, just your skill sets.
Okay, I think we'll leave it at that because this human capital development issue has so many segments. And I do know that I think the National Economic Council had something to do around human capital sometime last year or so, if I'm not mistaken. But we'll break it down in future shows, and let's see how we can actually develop our human capital, bearing in mind that we have 206 million people in the country. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today.
It's a pleasure.
All right, I've been speaking with Sola Bickersteth. He is the project director, NIMC Ecosystem. Which NIMC? This National Identity Management?
Yes.
Okay. This same NIN project that is causing wahala? That's a topic for another day. And I was told that the federal government is not rescinding its decision on the NIN registration.
We can't go back. We must make progress as a country. It's a foundation for economic development.
Okay, I don't want us to go into that because we're already out of time. All right, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you all for joining us. Please join us again tomorrow, same time on this station. I am Nancy Naji. Don't forget to be the best you can be and wear your mask. Mask up, everyone. I'll see you all tomorrow.